Hey, what's up, you guys? Today I wanted to do a quick little video doing a reaction to a YouTube video that I recently came across on my YouTube feed. And this is by NDMD. I believe it's a medical student who just finished his internal medicine rotation. And he's a guy with almost 100,000 subscribers. And the title is The Internal Battle of Internal Medicine. First of all, look at this like amazing cinematography. Look at that slow, pensive walk-in. Oh, very, very impressive production quality.
Where do I begin? So I just finished my internal medicine rotation. It took quite a lot out of me. Internal medicine is the most content-dense, most trying rotation that you get.
Hell yeah.
Particularly if you
Hell yeah, we're the most content-dense. The first thing I'm immediately noticing is that because I'm doing this reaction video, I'm listening on one-time speed, and it's been so long since I've watched something on one-time speed, it just seems very unnatural to me.
Today, I want to tell 3 of those stories that have truly shaped me and molded me for the better. The story of Miss R, then Miss S, and then finally Mr. B.
So one thing I wanted to touch upon here is that one of the reasons I decided to choose internal medicine was because I felt like of all the specialties I rotated on, internal medicine was the one that I remembered the patients the most. I remembered their names. I remembered exactly why they came in. Like, even to this day, I remember a lot of my first patients on internal medicine from medical school. I remember my very first patient. I remember his name. I remember what problem he was there for. I still remember tons of the names, the full names of the people I was seeing in like my 3rd year and 4th year internal medicine rotations. I didn't feel like I got that on a lot of other rotations. Like for surgery, you see them for like a day and you meet them in the OR waiting room. And then they go to the OR and then you see them for like a day after that and then they're gone. Obviously, there's some surgery patients that I remember too, but internal medicine by far was the one that I really, really felt like I remembered the patients the most. And that's what attracted me so much to it.
Medicine does a great job of bringing out the stereotypical imposter syndrome, for which you feel utterly preparedless because you're expected to know everything all the time, all at once.
Yeah, I think internal medicine is definitely one of the most difficult rotations because of how much content you need to know, which is obviously what he's alluding to here. But internal medicine especially can be difficult because you're just simply not exposed to a lot of things overall. So you can be a very top tier student and know a ton of stuff, but that one patient that you're seeing, they just happen to have the condition that you really haven't read up that much about or you weren't exposed to during medical school. And then you get pimped on all those questions. You get all of them wrong, even though you know heart failure so well and you know COPD so well. But like, oh, this person came in with pancreatitis and you didn't know the specifics about how to treat pancreatitis. And then it really reveals all of your knowledge deficits. So that is why internal medicine can be definitely one of the most difficult rotations, especially in terms of causing you to feel imposter syndrome, like he's saying here.
That leads to a lot of frustrating presentations, a lot of jumbling around of assessments and plans, and then just an overall sense of helplessness.
Very true. I think that jumbling around of assessments and plans is definitely a huge one. The key thing here is that you really should have a good senior resident who is running through the plan and the presentation with you before you go on to rounds. Because if they don't do that with you, your plan could be completely off and you're not going to know what the important points are to hit, when you're talking to the attending. And so you really need to have a good resident who cares about making you look good on rounds in order to make this a successful rotation. And you may or may not be lucky in terms of getting a resident who does that. And even for me as a senior resident, sometimes, you forget or you don't have enough time, but you try to do it as much as possible to run through the plan, run through the presentation with the medical student beforehand.
As you struggle to find a place in the medical team, know your patient better than anyone else. When you're only following 3 to 5 patients as opposed to your residents who are following 6 to 7.
If you're following 3 to 5 patients as a third-year medical student who's just starting on your internal medicine rotation, you are already far and beyond my expectations. Most third-year medical students are probably only going to be following 1 to 2 patients, and then maybe 2 to 3 by the time of their end of their rotation. So if he was following 3 to 5, that's actually pretty impressive. And I always encourage medical students to follow more patients, because the more patients you follow, the more you're going to learn, the more engaging rounds are going to be for you, because you're actually actively listening in and, having a more interactive role in it. And you're just going to learn more and you're going to look better. So it's always better to pick up more patients. Even if you feel like you can't handle it, you're never going to feel like you can handle it until you do it. So I always encourage them to pick up more patients. The rule about knowing your patients better than everybody else, everybody always says that, but I just find it very contrived and just like this saying that everybody says, but it's not actually guidance on how you can succeed in this rotation. Like, you need to know your patients better than everybody. Like, you're the medical student, you can spend the most time with the patient. In my opinion, the medical student is never going to know the most about the patient. It's probably going to be the intern, because the intern knows what's important about the patient. The medical student sure can spend an hour sitting there chatting with the patient and like talking about all their hobbies and things that go on at home and things like that. But the medical student, compared to the intern knows what all the important and versus the extraneous information is going to be. The medical student doesn't know that. So the intern is always going to know the patient better than the medical student will, in my opinion.
Now here begins the story of Miss R. She's had over 17 cardiac interventions.
I will say, if somebody has had over 17 cardiac interventions and you are a third-year medical student handling that patient, going through their chart and their history is going to be an extremely, incredibly difficult and daunting task. Honestly, this is probably not the bread and butter patient that these med students are going to be getting, because she's probably had multiple complications that are just really making her an overall much more complex patient. And it's just going to be really difficult for a brand new third-year medical student to go through. But still lots of good learning. And obviously, I'm curious to see what he's going to say about his experience treating this patient.
But I did the only thing I could do, which was stay and listen, and just listening, crying. And the next morning, it was the biggest ray of sunshine. She looked at me and then looked at my attending and said, "Thank you," because every morning he would come in checking on me with genuine concern. Spending the time to listen, spending the time to be with me when I needed it the most. When all the other doctors were busy, you were here. Guy residents, all these tough, guys from Kentucky, from Tennessee, these residents who have seen it all, my attending who's had a 40-year career, former director of the cath lab, seen all sorts of messed up stuff.
He broke down crying?
We all walked into that room to see her. And not a single one of us left with dry eyes.
Wow.
Again,
I've never encountered a situation that was that tear-jerking. As doctors, you usually form like a pretty thick wall too. So that must have been pretty intense if it was the whole team crying, including the attending. Especially the residents, the burnt out residents.
She held on to that little piece of paper towel the entire weekend, and that you were her guardian angel throughout it all. She held on to that because it meant protection for her. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just trying to help.
It is impressive. He's sharing a lot of these experiences where he obviously made a huge impact on people's lives or during their hospital stay. But I do think there are also a lot of times where you're the medical student and the patient does not really express this much appreciation for you. So it's obviously something to balance. When he's talking about these are the highlights of his experience in the internal medicine rotation. But there's going to be a lot of lowlights too, where you take a full medical history and then you present the patient to the team, and all of a sudden you go back to the patient and then they're angry for some reason, or they change their story, or they said one thing when you were interviewing them and they change it. That's another common experience too. So it's not like everything is going to be all these like life-altering, very meaningful experiences, which he's sharing, which is the best part of medicine, definitely. But it's definitely not like every single patient you see is going to be like, you're my doctor, you took care of me, you were my guardian angel. So just take that part with a grain of salt.
And every day he would introduce me as, "Hey, that's my doctor, Dr. Wynn right there." And I remember joking around saying, Dr. Nguyen has a ring to it, but it'll be a couple more years. I'm just here to take care of you right now as the med student. And him just turning over to me and going, well, to me, you're my doctor. Internal medicine has been heartbreaking in a way, but I truly believe that maybe this is God's way of just breaking my heart to build up a foundation for how I know to care for my patients in the future. One day, I'll be comfortable with a patient calling me Dr. Nguyen. But to Mr. B, I'm glad I could have been that for you while you were there.
Oh man. All right. Well, that was definitely an interesting watch. Definitely very, very sentimental kind of guy. Definitely was heavily affected by medicine. I think everybody, responds to things differently. I think for me, I'm probably not as sentimental. I've definitely had times where I've felt very emotional, but I've never felt kind of that. I think that the degree to which he felt things is a little bit higher than me. And I think it's spectrum, right? You can't allow yourself to get too attached to patients is one thing. I hope he does decide to do internal medicine, because if he feels this strongly about his relationships and the interactions he had with patients on internal medicine, I think that's a good sign that he should maybe go into internal medicine. But we'll see what he does in a couple of years. We'll see what residency he decides to match into. I'll be interested to follow up on that. Maybe it's a little too much for him. I mean, it seems like he definitely took it pretty hard. And so maybe internal medicine might not be the best match for him, because we usually deal with a lot of sick people who most of the time are not going to get better. That guy with the EF of 15%, that guy's not going to get better. The person with 17 cardiac interventions, not going to get better. Like, these people, we delay kind of the inevitable. We try to preserve as much quality of life as possible, but it's not like surgery where we can like immediately reverse their condition and then they're just 100% back to normal, healthy self. These people have decades of damage that has been done to their bodies, and the most we can do is really try and stabilize it a little bit, give them a little bit more quality of life, or stabilize things to live a few more years. A lot of times their conditions are not really going to improve much, especially because a lot of these patients have lifelong habits that are not going to be corrected just by going into the hospital, getting diuresed, getting 30 pounds off. It's not going to correct their lifetime of bad habits that often lead them into the positions they are in. So if you are too sentimental about things, it could be a very difficult specialty. But that being said, internal medicine has so many different avenues to pursue. You see healthier patients, younger patients in different fields. And some fields, you see really the end stage of everything. Especially ICU can be a very tough emotional field. I think I would have liked to hear a little bit more of his struggles as a medical student going through internal medicine, because I feel like that really was the biggest thing in internal medicine for me. Just the day-to-day stuff was very difficult as a medical student. But I do understand why he wants to share like the most meaningful patient experiences he had. I'd be definitely interested in listening to some more of his reviews of other rotations once he finishes those and see how his thoughts are on those. Yeah, I thought it was just kind of fun to watch his video and give a couple of my 2 cents on that. So hope you guys enjoyed this kind of different video. I've never done a reaction video before on here really. So let me know what you think. Go check out his video. I'm going to link it down in the comments down below if you want to check out his full video and the rest of his channel. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.